You have to truly believe in the magic.
How's it going, Magic fans? And welcome to this week's episode of Penny for Your Thoughts, the Orlando Magic UK podcast. We're recording on the 24th of March. We've meant to be 8:30 p.m, but me and Paul's had a little chat before we came on air. I am joined by a man with some very special news. So how are we, Mr. Bacon?
I am very, very well, thank you. Just refer to me as Grandad for the rest of the podcast. As some of you have seen on Twitter and whatever, my daughter Heather and her partner Rob took delivery of their lovely little granddaughter, our granddaughter, Evie Grace, born 22nd, so a couple of days ago now. 7 pound, 9.5 ounces, so she's a good size. So yeah, we've been having cuddles and all that sort of thing. So the Magic family has grown by one this week. She will be indoctrinated, trust me. Yeah, it's great.
So I've got to ask on behalf of the UK community, Paul, is it Grandad Paul or Grandad Raoul?
It's Grandad Paul at the moment. Once she's old enough to know the story, then she'll get told.
Oh, I think
I'm happy with anything.
We're going to need her at those. We'll come on to this, but we're going to need her at these Knicks and Boston games in the Amway just to even it out a little bit more. I think.
Mate, by the time that kid is old enough to be travelling and taking in, we'll be playing for championships, and there won't be room for away fans.
I think right, Paul.
Mate, Raoul, you've heard it from Raoul. How's your week been, mate?
It's been all right. I've had a funny one tonight where one of my mates has said, "What are you doing on Sunday morning?" Like a couple of us, and I said, "Why do you ask?" And he went, "I'm getting married. Do you fancy coming along?"
I mean, mate, 2 days' notice, that sort of thing. What are you doing Sunday morning? It's more like fancy playing Sunday football, or you have a game of pickup or something. Not fancy coming to the wedding. Yeah. Wow. So you're getting the best bib and tucker out, dude, and making an appearance.
I've got my suit. I was just kind of like, I know you're really chilled out, but even by my standards, I'm pretty chilled out about this type of thing. And I was like, even by my standards, that takes some beating.
Wow, mate. Yeah, that's pretty laid back with stuff. That's don't think I could cope with that.
I think I actually sat there and I went, you know what? I actually approve of this. In reality, I approve of this. I like this.
Yeah, mate. Whatever works for them.
Yeah.
There, mate. Can't fault them. As long as they're happy.
Yeah.
Like we said before we came on, too much sad news around. Let's enjoy the good.
Yeah, rock up as long as I'm not asked to leave the wedding. It's all good, really.
Hey, I can see you officiating.
I tell you what, I did a best man speech before, and another one of my mates' wives didn't speak to me for 5 minutes after it. So
that's the job. That's the job, mate.
Kind of a good speech, isn't it? So, with that said, on today's episode, we're not going to talk about weddings and babies anymore, which sounds like it should be a Hugh Grant film or something. We're going to talk about refereeing.
Let's get to the basketball.
And let's get the basketball, the important stuff. 4 games and a baby or something like that, yeah? Talk about refereeing.
There's the title. There's the title of this week's pod.
Mikey, get it down. 4 games and a baby. We just need Hugh Grant as the guest and Guy Ritchie direct.
I'm just about to say, at least we haven't started the pod the way that 4 Weddings and a Funeral did, with about 2 full minutes of the F word. So yeah, we've made an improvement. Although perhaps people would like that. Who knows?
We can work on that. If you want to, I can make some signs as well. Love Actually, we'll go for that.
Love Actually, there you go. Yeah, it's not Christmas in our house unless we've watched that.
I've never seen it.
Oh, mate, it's good. Yeah, you'll like it. It's a bit soppy at times, but hey,
I'll stick with
it. It's more cuddling up with the lady at the side of you.
Nah, you're all right, mate. I'll stick with Die.
Die Hard's the Christmas film, mate. I'm there with you. An elf.
Die Hard. I think there's the snow at the end of Blade. I think there's some snow at the end of the road.
I think you can manage that one. Lethal Weapon as well as a Christmas film.
That was a Christmas film, of course. So anyway, this has just totally got off the air.
This took a severe left turn.
I see Mikey just sitting there going like, I kind of trust these guys with anything, and you'll be way too drunk to even care.
And I'm going to say this is without drinking as well.
Yeah, it's copy this. So we're going to talk about referees, which will be fun. This week's games, and apparently the very close Rookie of the Year race, which is going to be an interesting chat we're going to have. But before we do that, just a few affiliate plugs. As you know, the Magic have got a number of jerseys out now, and these are available on NBA EU. You can get yours with the future Rookie of the Year, Paolo Banchero. You can get who should have been Rookie of the Year last year, Franz Wagner, Galen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, and G's favourite player, Markel Fultz. And if you like Paul, you can even customise it and use our affiliate code MAGICUK10, which will get you 10% off. We're not saying that's the best voucher code. There might be better ones out there, but that's the one we have, and it supports the pod. Also, if you head over to our online store, which is magicfansapparel.tmill.com, you can buy some of our merchandise there if you're feeling flush and you haven't had a heating bill. And if you're in the UK, you'll get that. And then finally, you can help support the podcast. And this is the one we'd really like, really, is if you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Orlando Magic UK, and follow us on socials. That would be really, really appreciated. But if you subscribe to it, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the pod, please. It would really, really help. So
even if you're not watching it on YouTube, subscribe to the pod.
Yeah, we
get
like
on there. Get on YouTube, subscribe. Help us, please. We really appreciate it. We are banging on about it, we know, but please, it really helps.
If we could get to 1,000 subs, we would be delighted.
Yeah, that's the target.
We would be delighted. And if you think I'm joking, imagine G's face. You see what his face looks like when Fultz has a great game. Imagine what it would look like with 1,000 subs. That's all I've got to say. So Magic news, Paul. To start with, today the Magic announced we're signing Jay Scrubb to a two-way contract from Lakeland. It's a 2-year deal. So the remainder of this season and the 2023-24 season, as per Kobe Price. Scrubb's a 22-year-old shooting guard. He was selected with the 55th pick. So that's the second round of the 2020 NBA draft. And he's led Lakeland in scoring this season. So Jay Scrubb, if anything, any views on that, Paul?
I think the lads earned it. I'm more than happy. Well, we got 8 games left this season. Yeah, great. Let the lad get in, get a few bit of experience. Let's see what he can do. Look, we all feel that the play-in has probably gone. Yes, we're still mathematically capable of doing it, but with every game, it gets more remote. The opportunity. So it's nice to see somebody getting an opportunity, and I think his figures for Lakeland show that he's earned this opportunity. Good luck to the man.
Yeah. I think when you're a player as well, when you're at Lakeland, and that's like the place where you've spent most of the season and you're in the G League, if you've had the season that he's had and we've got a roster spot that's spare, we kind of owe it to that guy at this point.
I agree. Yeah.
Imagine.
You look at it as well, mate, the coaching philosophy between the two is it runs through as an organisation. So he's coming into something that he should be relatively familiar with. We use Lakeland, as we've seen with RJ before he went, to give people minutes. We use Lakeland to get people back towards some fitness. And it's nice to see us rewarding those that are working hard and producing good figures for that team with the opportunity to come into the main organisation and show what they can do.
And I think we've seen with the likes of RJ Hampton specifically, where if a player's trying to get minutes and advance their career, a selling point for our front offices is even if it's not with the Magic, they'll get a chance.
Yeah.
And I think
absolutely. And we've seen that with our front office. Absolutely. They want to look after people. We saw it with T. Ross to an element with Mo Bamba. Fair play to him. Yeah. Good man. I like the signing. Like him.
Good luck to him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So since we last recorded, we've played 4 games, and the first up, Paul, was a lovely UK friendly tip-off as we
Wasn't it amazing?
nice, isn't it? It's almost like being normal, wasn't it? To have to stay up the night. And then 130, 108 win. And I'm going to say this is in the crypto arena, not the Staples one. I even always want to go Staples Centre.
Yeah.
And we've got key
I
content.
didn't realise it had changed.
I didn't. You know, when I did the video on Twitter, the first time I said it just by force of habit. It's always been the Staples Centre to me. So I kind of just said Staples. And then probably an hour later, I was like, you should have said crypto. Or you should have said crypto. It was too late. It was out there then. But we got contributions. Markel Fultz, 28 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. We got a huge double-double from Wendell with 27 and 12. And we got 18 points and 8 rebounds from the bench by the GOAT, Cole Anthony. What was your views on this friendly game, Paul, which was lovely for us, by the way?
Right, it was a really strong win, and to score 7 on 7 of our last 8 possessions showed some grit. It showed some growth, and this is what I think the play-in tournament has brought this in. That if you are within that area, teams are, and you come up against a team that is playing for home court or playing to be involved in the play-in, you're playing effectively playoff basketball. You're getting experience. So we showed growth. We showed resilience. We showed. I don't think we'd have won that game at the start of the season. We weren't. We played some really nice basketball, but they're a good team, and they kept plugging away. And you've got your star man there in Paul George, and he could have took over. But as a team, they worked as a team. They worked together. As you say, we saw a career night as far as scoring goes from Markel Fultz. He stuffed the stats sheet besides that. And the thing that stuck out for me was the 4 steals. He worked his backside off on defense. As you said, Wendell, another double-double. Absolute 27 points. And again, the thing he did, some shooting from deep. Went 50% from deep. Good man. And again, he got us another 3 steals. There was so much effort involved in that team play. 14 steals. They were active. They were working hard together, and you could see that they'd come together to have that end, to get that result. And the thing that I was so pleased to see, something we haven't done for a long while, they really defended the 3-point shot extremely well. It shows that we can do it, and it was good to see. So yeah, I thought it was. I was happy. I was really happy. I'm not going to lie. I'd kind of got one eye on elsewhere in the. Was anything going to be happening? There was there's plan C section going to be coming forward anyhow or whatever. But yeah, it was nice to have that early tip, and the result and the performance. I was buzzing, mate. It was great.
Yeah, I thought first of all, my first takeaway on it was what a difference Wendell makes when he's there, because we've seen him out the lineup recently, but he gives us more of a presence on the inside. And when you add in the 3-point shooting that you mentioned, Paul, it looked automatic in that game in particular, and it's looked pretty good the last few games. And I think if Wendell makes that a consistent feature of his game, that elevates him to another level for me, because he goes from being maybe a 15 points a game center to someone who can be starting to push towards 19, 20.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't sound much, but when you look at how our team's evolving and we need from the center position, I think it actually is quite a lot, because we need it. We had a chat and we'll come on to this. We need a guy who's playing at the 5 who can hit the 3 for the way our team's currently constructed, and that's huge.
We look good when we actually. Jeff Turner's always on about it, collapsing the paint. That's where our good 3-point shooting comes from. And when we lost Vooch to the trade and got Wendell back. To start with, we lost that 3-point threat.
Yeah.
Mo Bamba had that threat when he was on. There's other guys that we've seen can do it, but to get Wendell now contributing effectively far, far more often, if he can, as you've just said, if he can raise that little bit further, he becomes. I mean, he's on a steal of a contract anyway, as far as players go, and if we can get him to just have that little bit more efficiency on the 3-point, he becomes a huge, huge asset. I mean, I can't remember who said this week that he's. I think it might have been Tom Thibodeau after last night. That as far as he's concerned, Wendell is a criminally underrated player within the NBA. I think it was. I think it was him after the last night's game.
He is. When you see lists of centres in the East, you don't usually see Wendell's name cracking the top 8. You might see him mentioned 10th, 11th, but he does have the ability to cause some of the more prominent centres to have hard nights.
Yeah. Yeah. He relishes it. He loves that challenge. He loves the defensive challenge against the stars.
And he's undersized for a centre.
Yeah.
Which is, he's a big guy. He's got the bulk, but in terms of the height, he's maybe an inch or two shorter than he would want to be for that position. But he gives like Embiid's had some really tough times with him.
Yeah.
And I would also say, like, just a little point out when you were saying about Markelle Fultz, Paul, and in the final 4 minutes and 36 seconds of the game, Fultz scored his 12 fourth quarter points in that final 4:36. That's where you're talking about a guy putting a team on their back. And I know Markelle had said, we'll make the play in and all that. He looks like he's really taken that seriously. That promise of him.
You look at it, what the wins that we have now, was it 9 wins more now than last season?
Yeah.
That's great growth. And when you consider the start to the season that we had, and I know he's not he's not universally popular, is Markelle, as far as our fan base is going. I don't understand how you can't like Markelle if you like Cole. It's one of them bizarre things. What's wrong with liking both of them? But Markelle, if he'd have been fit from the start of the season, I think we would have been at least 3 places better.
Yeah,
in the standings.
We're a playoff team with a healthy team. We're a playoff team.
Yeah,
it's just been asterisks against this team really since Steve Clifford was here about injuries.
Yeah,
it's cost us this year because that 9-game leap would have been over 15-game leap if we'd had a healthy team.
I mean, there's been all sorts of stats, hasn't there, this week around Markelle about his efficiency as far as guards go. He's in the top 3 and this, that, and the other. There's so many stats that you could talk about him ad infinitum and it would get quite boring to hear, I suppose. However, his impact on this team, I don't think you can understate it.
When you look at what he's done in the last stretch of games, he looks like your top pick or a top 3 pick. He looks that player. And okay, you're looking at Jason Tatum's. If you redraft that draft, you've probably taken Jason Tatum number 1, unless you're G. You're probably taking Jason Tatum number 1. But I would say that I've seen those drafts done where they do the redrafts and stuff, and they're not even taking Fultz in the lottery. And some of them, you're like, you watch what he's done recently, and he looks every inch the top 3 pick, which is where he was.
He's starting. I'm not saying he's reminding me entirely of Chris Paul, but there's little bits that you think of with Chris Paul. Chris Paul knows his spots. His plays to get to those spots. You're seeing that now with Markelle. He knows where he wants to get. Whether he's decided whether he's driving at the basket, he's decided whether he's going for a pull-up too. His 3-point shot is okay.
Better than him.
Yeah. And then put him at the line.
Mm-hmm.
Spectacular efficiency.
and he couldn't do it when he was in Philly because of his shoulder. He couldn't shoot a free throw. And then what I would say is, if you look at the Markel Fultz who's playing now versus the Markel Fultz who was there in the Vooch team when we first got him, this is a totally different Markel Fultz.
Yeah.
It's not the same player. You mentioned that when he gets in the paint, he knows what he's going to do. The old Fultz would defer. And there's times where he's like, actually, I'm taking this.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a confidence.
Yeah.
There's a confidence in his ability. And I think some of that is born from that he knows he's got Wendell to play to. He knows he's got Sport of France. He knows that he's got Rookie of the Year Paolo there. Be it Cole playing with him. Mm-hmm. There's a team around him that are starting to draw other players' attention, that are taking coaches' attention, and not Markel is benefiting from having that. Mm-hmm. It's good to see.
It is
great to see. There's an excitement, and when he gets the ball, there's an excitement.
Oh yeah, he's a guy who we've got a few players like this now where you pay. Obviously, we're not in Orlando, but we've been to Orlando. You pay your ticket money, to see them, and if you're going to buy a jersey, you're looking at that and you're going, oh, it might be a Markel jersey, it might be a Banchero, it might be a Wagner, but you've got options. Whereas, in the not too recent history, you were struggling. Yeah,
I agree. Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So going from the Clippers, we played in LA, and this is going to be interesting. And we lost 111, 105 to the Lakers.
Let me get the glasses on ready.
Yeah, get them on. We haven't got G here. We know he's. But,
tonight, I've got to be the honorary G.
You do, and it's going to be good luck with this, Paul, because it was a controversial game despite 21 points each from Paolo and Franz. But social media really erupted, talking about officiating and referees, which is one of our points on the pod tonight. And I know you'll want to crack at this, and I thought you were very balanced on social media, by the way, during the week. But what was your take on the referees, Paul?
Hey, look, this week in the Lakers game alone, we could fill a pod. Mm-hmm. There was so much good stuff to talk about, and then there was the absolute dross. Start with the good. We fought from 16 down to tie the game late in the fourth. Unfortunately, on the night, our 3-point shooting let us down. Mm-hmm. However, and it is a huge however, that officiating was dire. And when you're playing 8-on-5 at times, it's never going to go well. And I do genuinely believe that the game was being officiated completely differently for one team to the other. Let's start with the missed goaltend. How important was that within the game itself? At that point, we were 3 points down. You get your 2 points for that. It's a 1-point game. Instead, we ended up being 5 down because they went straight up the other end and scored. You could see the frustration start to boil with our team there. It was almost inevitable that at some point one of the guys was going to get a technical. Mm-hmm. Before we get to Paolo and his technical, Franz, what's the guy got to do to get a call? Mm-hmm. There was one play, and I think it was in the fourth quarter, just a short time before Paolo got his technical issue, where Franz is on the drive to the basket, lays it in, and on the way up, there are 2 Lakers players individually fouling. One gets one arm, one gets the other arm, and it's not together. It's not both of them at once. It's one gets him once, he takes the next step onto the layup, and another gets him on the way up. They were straight in front of the official, and we got no call at all. Absolutely nothing. I was quite happy to see Paolo react the way he did, because he got clubbed. That was a foul all day long on that shot, and he should have got free throws. So for him to react, fine. I've got no problem on that, because at that point anyway, when he did react, I think we were about 6 points down. For me, with the time that was left, the game was gone anyway. So I'd got no problem with that. I would have actually liked to have seen the coach get a technical before that and start getting into their ears in the third quarter, but certainly earlier in the fourth, because what we saw in that fourth quarter was utterly ridiculous. You've got to look at how the contrast to how we were officiated to what Austin Reeves was getting in that fourth quarter. If he had a hair out of place, he was getting free throws. It was starting. I think I put in one point that if somebody dropped popcorn, he was getting free throws for it. Yeah. It was ridiculous. The disparity that we saw, as I say, was stupid. There is an element that I will accept that it's slightly misskewed by the fact that we had to start playing the foul game. So we were grabbing him towards the end. But we had that where he clearly took a step into, I think it was into Franz, to get a 2-point free throw. Or did he actually make the layup, make the shot and get a free throw? It was clearly an offensive foul. That was one of the things that was supposed to be being picked up at the start of the season, where the offensive player makes a deliberate move to draw contact, that was going to be an offensive foul. They stopped calling that, and it spoiled the game. When you get one player shooting more free throws than the actual team itself, it's quite ridiculous.
Look at this.
Excuse me. Dinner's arrived. We've been before we started doing this. We've been round at my daughter's, and I've only just got in, so we've not eaten. So I do apologise.
What Paul took in was
right. I'm going to, trust me. But the positive side of things: Paolo, 21 points; Franz, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists; Markel, double of 12 points and 10 assists. And at that point, that game was where Wendell recorded his 20th double of the season. And that's sort of, you wanted to see those stats. Cole got 17. We fought them hard. We played them hard. We went with a team that if you believe the NBA media, are still capable of coming out of the West and winning it all. And were it not for the officiating, we would have won that game. And I do believe that. I do believe that the officials had a hand in that. But we've not been the only team this week, have we, by any stretch of the imagination?
No.
You know, I know that only one team gets an apology and it causes them sleepless nights to officials when they get it wrong with LeBron calls. But I can understand why Kawhi got a technical foul. But then to get butthurt the way the official did and toss man out of the game, I can understand why Kawhi got that technical, but he was correct. It was the same situation as Paolo had against the Lakers. He got hit and didn't get a call. Those officials had a direct effect on that Clippers OKC game. For them to lose by 1 point, they had a direct effect. You can rescind that second technical, which they have done, but it's not going to change that game. That game's gone. Then we saw the Lakers again have against Phoenix the number of free throws. Oh, behave. It's ridiculous. What's been your view, mate?
My view, first of all, the key one is how we managed to get 17 free throws and how Austin Reeves managed to get 18 free throws. So us as a team, actually, with players who get in the lane, like Wagner, like Wendell, like Fultz, like Banchero, significantly can't, as a collective, get more free throws than one guy for the Lakers, which was very, very interesting. It's interesting how LeBron can coach as he does and seemingly have the ear from the sideline. I think that's quite an interesting one. I'm not one to jump on referees because I always think it's a sign of a bad team when you blame the officiating. But when you look at the theme of this week, and this is going to sound like tinfoil hat type conspiracy type thing here, but the NBA markets the Lakers on Christmas Day games when the Lakers aren't very good.
Yep.
And the Lakers get primetime slots, and you see stuff like, there's a double header tonight and there'll be two big games on, and one of them will be the Lakers. And you're kind of like, but the Lakers are struggling to get in the play. They're a playing team. That's where they are right now.
Yeah.
And it's what a blockbuster this is. And we've heard things before about, we know superstar calls exist in the NBA. We know it's a thing. We know the Lakers have got two superstars on their team in Anthony Davis and LeBron. And we know for the good of TV ratings and such that the NBA would want the LA Lakers in the play or the playoff tournament. Now, I'm not saying there's been a directive passed against the Magic or anything like that. I don't believe the league works that way. But I do think that, we know that superstar calls exist. And when you start looking at the free throw disparity and you look at the foul calls and things like that, even a little bit of balance, and you're talking about really the Magic probably win that game.
Yeah.
It's annoying, and I hate doing it because I don't really go in. I'm not somebody who sits and has like a go at referees. Like you said, I just don't do it.
Which is why I started with our 3-point shooting. We let ourselves down with our 3-point shooting. I think was it less than 20%. I think we were hitting that night.
We have to find.
I can't remember. Yeah, and I can't remember the actual figure. But that was our fault. That was our problem. We didn't change our style when things weren't falling. It was I think it was late in the game that you actually saw Franz start to attack the basket as opposed to throwing threes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not starting from the premise of having a go at the referee.
Okay.
However, in a close game, that disparity is hugely telling. And I still said that, we were playing the foul game. I understand that.
Mm-hmm. And you look at
why were we playing the foul game?
Mm-hmm. But you look at Franz Wagner, like you made the point, Paul, about Franz and getting calls, not even as a standalone, but like through the season. There's times where Franz Wagner is like leaving games, and his arms and shoulders are battered, and he's barely had any free throws. And you're like, well, how's that happened? It's clear that it's scratching and it's over the top physical contact. But if he's got their marks on them where he's got them, there's a good case to say that that's happening in the paint in one of two areas, either our paint or theirs. But it's a foul.
Yeah, I can't remember who I saw had wrote it this week that Franz in his draft class is getting less respect and calls from referees than most others within his draft class.
But when you look at Franz in his draft class, and we're going to come on to this later on when we're talking about it, but when you look at the narratives that are coming out now around Rookie of the Year, and it's jumping ahead and stuff, and then you look at the actual what Franz Wagner did last season, and he didn't get a narrative actually to be in the top 3.
Yeah. And
you look at him and you go, well, hold on a second here. What's this guy got to do? Because he is a very, you talk about Wendell Carter Jr., Franz Wagner is I think he's got a little bit of shine this season because of Banchero, but last season, the way he was slept on was disgraceful.
It was, mate. How there could have been no vote for him, and you never saw him mentioned in the top 3, even though figures were towards that direction. Yeah, there was a clear bias and sleeping on him. Yeah, but hey, we'll come to that in a moment.
We will. So the next up, we had we returned to the 407. We're in the Amway, and the Magic got the Wizards coming in, and it's 122-112 win. And we saw a really nice balanced scoring output with 7 Magic players in double figures. Gary Harris stands out with 22 points on 6 of 9 shooting from 3-point range. So, Paul, where we're at with this? Sorry for interrupting you.
Mate, no, carry on. I'm quite happy. I'm enjoying and talking basketball as always. Mate, it was really good to see Gary Harris produce because he had been struggling. I was saying before we started recording this, when I'm doing the game previews, it's been the same 5 people that you're consistently mentioning. It's Paolo, it's Franz, it's Cole, it's brain's gone, Wendell, and Markel. They're the 5 that you're constantly mentioning as having consistent scoring games.
Yeah.
The one person who's been missing from that starting unit is Gary Harris. And he's been producing sort of 6 points, perhaps less than that, but he's still been an effective defender. He hasn't been hitting the shots. So to see him drop 22, and there were some really, really important shots at particular times where we needed them to go in. He had a great game. I was really impressed. But again, you've got to mention, Paolo was flirting with a triple-double in that game. It was an assist, two assists, or an assist short and a rebound short.
I will bring up the stats. Give me one moment.
18 points, and I think it was 9 rebounds and 8 assists. I think it was that.
I think for the game as well, I thought it was a really strange game, actually, the first half, the way it started, because it just seemed as though it was going to be one of those flat affairs.
And I've got to say, I was so, aside from Gary Harris having a really good performance, the person I was so pleased to see back, Mo Wagner.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, and I think we saw it more last night that against New York, that this, as we've dropped off from the opportunity to be in the play-in tournament, which we know we're still there, we're still in the conversation, but we've dropped away.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've seen some more, understandably, experimentation with the rotations. We saw some different lineups. We had Goga and Mo on the court together at the same time. We've seen increased minutes for Caleb Houston. So I understand that we're rotating things around and having a look, but it just hasn't felt the same from the bench. And I think that was one of the issues against the Clippers and against the Lakers, that we didn't get the production from the bench. Against the Wizards, not only did you have Cole coming off the bench to score, you had huge impact from Mo Wagner coming on and bringing 15 points. I think it was 15 points.
15 points in 14 minutes, Paul.
He is exactly. He's far more impactful at that backup centre. So I thought it was great to see him back. Really liked. And let's be fair. The other thing, as we're playing them again next week, going into that game against them, having snapped the 7-game losing streak that we had against the Wizards, it's nice because you start to have that hoodoo around teams and that mental block of, can we actually beat these? These have got our number every time we play them. So to break that, that was one of the most pleasing things. But efficient 3-point shooting, we really shot the ball well, disciplined on defense, and they really rebounded well. When you think of who they've got as big men, KP is a cracking player, always scores against us, rebounding well. It was a bit, and you look at what else they've got. So the performance that we put in that respect, I was made up with. It was great to see. It was really good to see.
You were dead right, by the way, about the triple-double, where it was Paolo had 18 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists in the game. But looking through it, I think as well, like the bench, I think it was in the game preview, I'd said we needed more from our bench unit in that game. It was only Cole and Moore who scored, because Harris didn't do that, but we got 31 points from those two. And Gary Harris obviously said he was the standout performer, 22 points in 24 minutes. And if we could just get a little bit nearer to that, from him, it changes a lot as well about the narrative of the team. But you mentioned a guy there in on the Wizards, in Kristaps Porzingis, and we had a little bit of chat about Kristaps before
We did.
I came on air. I know I saw him play live in the summer when Lafayette visited here.
Yeah,
and he was immense then. And he's a guy who's struggled with injury issues, and he's got that unicorn tag about him. But he's been making some noises about the Magic, hasn't he, this week?
Yeah, he was a post-game interview, wasn't it, where he said straight away he messaged the coach to say that great job he's doing, that the team's really progressing, that we've got really nice pieces, and what a job that the coach has done. How the team have I think he said something about they're starting to get a mental toughness or something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to see those vibes being given out by other players of you're doing something right here and you're going to be interesting to watch. And it's also exciting if would he be the sort of player you'd go for?
If he was healthy, yes. On the contract he's previously had, because I know at one point when he was really injured, he was on a huge deal and he couldn't.
That was when he was at Dallas.
Yeah. And he got it in New York and then it was shifted to Dallas. And one of those where there was talk at one point about would he be in Orlando, and Cortez was kind of like, well, actually he does fill a need for us. I believe it was Cortez who said that in a conversation. But when you look at him now, and I know I've said it the last couple of times I've been on the pod about how Mo Bamba would be the start, like on paper, the guy you'd want if he'd lived up to the hype. If you're looking at a guy who can block shots and score, particularly threes, he would have a serious use for the Magic.
Absolutely.
He would be immense in there because he fills a lot of our needs. I'm not saying I want to get rid of Wendell or anything like that. I'm just saying that when you look at how this team's made up, Porzingis, I think, fits pretty well with it.
Yeah. I think there's always, as well as Wendell is playing, and we've just been enthusing about him, there's still a conversation around as is he the centre going forward?
Mm-hmm.
Long term, is he the centre? I'm happy to keep seeing him grow the way he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm conscious of how much potentially KP would require resource-wise.
Yeah.
But when if you start being in the conversation for players like that, the team's headed in the right direction.
Correct. Totally correct. I think as well, obviously the two different types of players, particularly with us. We know Wendell alters a lot of shots around the rim by his presence more than anything. But the question mark against both's health, whether you're going to get the games out of them, and that's a one for me to watch there. But in terms of fit, Porzingis, in an ideal world where you don't have salary caps and people are just playing where they want, he would be pretty good fit in Orlando, But I was delighted with that one, and it's close. And next season the Wizards are one of those teams who we've got to finish above if we want to be in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
So I think that was a nice little statement in itself. And then obviously our most recent game, we had the Snowbirds coming into the Amways, the Magic.
Bing bong, bing bong.
Oh yeah. I would love to have seen that in New York again, but never mind. But the Snowbirds were there, 111 to 106. Paolo Banchero led the Magic, 21 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Cole Anthony, 18 and 6 from the bench. We got big contributions from Wendell with 16 and 8. We got 16 and 6 assists from Franz, who did leave the game early. And we got 11 and 7 rebounds from Mo Wagner. So have you seen the game, Paul?
I watched the game.
Yeah, we did.
I watched the game. I watched the game live because I'd been to meet our granddaughter. I'd got absolutely 0% chance of going to sleep. I was far too excited. I was also far too drunk to actually tell you any great details about the game. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. As to details, that's far too many whiskies. I'm sorry.
No problem. What I will say is that from my angle, I watched the first 3 quarters because I've basically got like a vampire sleeping pattern. So I watched the first 3 quarters and I was like, you better go to sleep here. You really have to go to sleep now. And I caught the 4th quarter when I got back from work. But for me, what stood out, and I know I'm a little bit biased here, but it's Cole.
Yeah.
And
Cole, mate, Cole. We said it before about Cole. He comes from the bench, and I know we're going to talk about this because it's one of the questions. But he brings an enthusiasm and he brings an energy. And last night that was on the show.
For me, he ran the 4th quarter, and he doesn't get enough credit for this, but his defense was good as well last night. And you saw him at the end of the game. We know that when his mum's in town and his little brother's there, it's a big thing when he plays the Knicks. He loves it, doesn't he?
That post-game interview where he big brothered his little brother.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant. So funny. Shut up. So funny. I love the guy. Absolutely love the guy.
He's just unreal. But again, it was huge from him. And for me, he was the guy who took the 4th quarter. He was the standout in the 4th quarter. He hit a couple of big threes. And he basically had that reputation. I think Jeff Turner said it was like ice cold or cold, and all this. And it's the Cole Anthony who we've seen before, coming up big when you need him. But it was great to see. And again, if not for injuries, we're maybe looking at the Knicks as a team where we're saying, are we around that level?
Yeah.
Now, let's be honest, no Jalen Brunson last night, which is huge for the Knicks. But then we could turn that around and say, well, no Jonathan Isaac, no Jalen Suggs for the Magic. And that's pretty big for us as well, because we know how those two guys affect the defensive end. So,
right. Well, I sometimes think that you get a feel of where you are from the opposition coach's post-game interview. And, you've got Tom Thibodeau there saying, he's asked the question about how he'd plan and approach the Magic, and obviously, like everybody else, said you're planning for Paolo and Franz to get the ball out of their hands, and as well as Markel's played. Markel's been brilliant for the team, he was saying, but he was him, as we said earlier, who was enthusing about Wendell Carter Jr. being an underrated player within the league.
Yeah.
That guy's been around a bit. He knows he's built a few decent teams.
Yeah. Well, you got to wonder though as well. It comes back to this thing about, like media narratives and stuff. Obviously, Wendell was on the Bulls. They see media attention. But if Wendell was a Laker or if Wendell was a Knick.
Oh, yeah.
We're suddenly talking about this guy doesn't get the love he deserves. That would be the narrative. It would be.
Yeah.
If Wendell Carter was putting up 16 and 9 on the Lakers, it would be like, when's his breakout coming? It would be.
You're right, mate. I do think you're right. I absolutely agree. I do.
Yeah.
I G said it about Austin Reeves this week, didn't he? That you watch next season, the Lakers will be touting him as the greatest thing, the same way as they do with Taylor Horton Tucker. You do see it, and the media latch onto it every single time because there is this LA bias because of where a lot of them are based.
Mm-hmm. And who people support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If you talk about the guy, like we do it on here, we're biased, but we do it about our guys. But when you've got people like who are Laker ticket holders on national TV, they're going to talk basketball. They're going to put forward the idea of the people they watch on a regular basis, which is Laker play, which is interesting. So talking about media, and it brings us on to a bit of an interesting one, and it's the Rookie of the Year discussion. And for most of the season, our number one pick, Paolo Banchero's rookie campaign, drawn comparisons, praise for LeBron-esque numbers, the number one option on the team, averaging over 20 points a game, getting people even saying he might be an all-star in his first year. We've had this list today that's come out with what Paolo's doing, puts him in exclusive company with the likes of Michael Jordan, I think it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
basically players who've had, I think of the 12 players on the list that he's about joining, you're looking at it and it's like actually 10 of those are like pretty famous household names. And I'm not disrespecting, I think it was Chuck Person, like you're basically looking at and going, there's some really good players there. And somehow the narrative this last 2 weeks, we'll say, has been that this is a close, up for debate rookie of the year. He hasn't got a tight grip on it. And it's coming out of this idea, and no disrespect to this guy, that Oklahoma City's Jalen Williams is the guy who's closest to edging Paolo for rookie of the year. Williams is at 13.6 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 3.2 assists. And in his last 10, so if we look at his last 10 games and we take this as the last couple of weeks narrative, where everyone's jumping on the Jalen Williams train, he's averaging 19.1 points a game, 4.5 assists, 7.7 rebounds, 56% from the field, and just under 46% from three. So is the rookie of the year race in doubt? Is it close, Paul? What do you reckon?
I can't make an argument for any of the other rookies beyond perhaps team record, or if you go by efficiency stats. Because we know that Paolo necessarily isn't the most efficient. But those two statements both come with some very strong arguments that devalue the validity of that premise of a team record and efficiency. So you look at the people that you're talking about. When we talk about Orlando and teams playing us, we know that coaches plan to take the ball out of Paolo's hand and Franz's hands. That's what Wes Unseld said he did. That's what Tom Thibodeau said, both in interviews this week. They plan first for Paolo and Jay and Franz. No other rookie has that. So you've got Jalen Williams in OKC, you've got Walker Kessler at Utah, Benedict Mathurin at Pacers, and Keegan Murray at the Kings, to name four. I believe that they are all supremely talented guys. I really like each of their games. Got absolutely nothing against any of these. The difference for them is that none of those players are the first planned for player. They all have an established player alongside who opponents will plan for first. You look down OKC's list, Jalen Williams is not the first player that you're looking at thinking, oh, he's the threat. SGA is. The same argument can be made. The same argument can be made for Utah. It can be made for the Pacers, and it can be made for the Sacramento Kings. They've all got other players that are their primary player. Equally, I don't think there's another rookie in the league this season that is carrying the load of a team the way Paolo is, and then also producing the figures that he is. It's 21 points. I've made a note of this one. I'd wrote it in one of the game previews, and I thought I'd bring it up again. His 21 points against the Lakers was, at that point of the season, the 36th game that he'd scored 20 plus points. That is the 9th most in NBA history, and only Carmelo Anthony holds the record with 49. So 13 more games. So he's not going to reach that record, but we've got 8 more games, and he's done it 36 times at that point. So we've got 2 more games at that point, and we've got 10 games left at that. That's hell of a stat. Then before last night's game, this was one I also wrote down. So before last night's game against the Knicks, Paolo had 42 games this season where he'd scored 15 plus points and 5 plus rebounds. That's more than any other. That's more than double any of the other rookies in his draft class. The closest to him before last night was Smith with 20, and Mathurin had 17. Jay Williams had got 17. So Paolo had 42 games of that nature. It's rookie of the year, not rookie of the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then, as you've said, there's this stat about if he gets 1,450 points, 475 rebounds, and 250 assists, the other 12 players that have done that before have all gone on to win Rookie of the Year. That's the list you were just talking about. So with 8 games to go, Paolo needs 112 points, 29 rebounds, and 3 assists to reach that goal. You're telling me they're not Rookie of the Year figures?
Mm-hmm.
And I just, as much as I want to be level and fair, I don't think you can make an argument for it. There's the other one. His averages that he's got this season so far are 20 points a game, 6.7 rebounds, and 3 assists. Since 1973-74 season, only 5 rookies have averaged those 3 stats of 26, of average stats of 26 and 3. So he's above them.
Mm-hmm.
Those players were Michael Jordan, Walter Davis, Larry Bird, Blake Griffin, and Luka. That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm sorry. I try to be fair. I always try to be level about things, and I just can't make an argument. And I don't understand where the Kevin O'Connors and others, somebody in the Athletic, wasn't there, are starting to make this this leap. And I've got to be honest, I think it's clickbait. I think they're just doing it for ratings. We'll see. But if he doesn't get it, he's been robbed.
Yeah. Well, Paul,
I'll put the soapbox to one side now.
No, you're right. Everything you said, spot on, and you don't have to say you're sorry because it's absolute madness. It's absolute madness. If anyone had produced this rookie campaign in the last couple of years, you're talking like there's the Rookie of the Year. Like, consider the hype that was around the big 3, which didn't include Franz Wagner last season.
Yep.
About what Cade Cunningham was doing, what Scotty Barnes was doing, what Evan Mobley was doing. Mobley, for me, had a huge case cost of the record. I get that. I see the Thunder, etc. But none of them were statistically doing. Like, really, Paolo's had the rookie season that people expected Cade Cunningham to have.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking at.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it was like you expected Cade. Well, I did. He had his battles with injuries, but he was the guy who was leading the Pistons. He was the first option, and you're looking and going, will he get 20 points and over 5 assists? Paolo's playing as a power forward. Yes, he's a ball handler, but he is putting up over 20 points and he's putting up over 6 rebounds. That's what would have been a good rookie season for Cade Cunningham, living up to the hype type of thing.
Yes.
And Paolo's had a huge impact on our record. And if you just look at some of the footage from games this week, he sees double and triple teams. Yeah. And you said it, Paul, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been unreal this season. Absolutely unreal. He looks like a legit starter in all-star games. He's a franchise player, but he is the guy who takes the focus of the opposition when he plays for OKC. You look at the Kings, and it's De'Aaron Fox. And that's a deep team because they then got Sabonis. That's 2 all-stars straight away. It's not even up for debate, this. And as you said, if this ends up at the end of the season where Paolo Banchero doesn't win this in a landslide, then there is something wrong. There is something really, really wrong because the guy's been dominant since game 1 when he threw that dunk down on the Pistons. Yeah, he's been of the year.
And I don't think we can say it clearly enough. This is absolutely nothing against any of the other rookies. I think as a group of people, we are very, very fair about other teams. You look at what we always are respectful about the other teams. We're respectful about the opponents that we face. we'll say if we think somebody's had a poor game. These guys, the other rookies within Paolo's class, there are some really, really talented players who will have brilliant careers.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about a single season. And we're talking about an award for Rookie of the Year for their first year. There can only be one because there's only one player has done it throughout the 12 months. Well, not 12 months, you know what I mean? Yeah. Throughout the season, throughout the period of the season.
I will say this, Paul, though, when you think about the rookie class from the previous year that was justifiably hyped up.
Yeah.
And then coming into this season, there was kind of you're not going to get a rookie class like that, which is deep and have guys who are going to make significant contributions. And, you know, your top pick isn't going to be able to compete with your top pick from the previous. Paolo, for me, looks every bit as good as your Cade Cunningham's, your Jalen Greens, he's better than Scotty Barnes. He's, you know, Evan Mobley, etc. He looks every bit as good as them. Where you'd be a serious, you know, France, he looks every bit as good as where you would say this guy, you know, he's got a chance where he'd have gone one in that draft, and then who knows before that in the season before he's against Anthony Edwards, who's supreme as well. But you look at that and you go, well, he certainly deserves possibly to be up there. Where you're talking about him and Halliburton from that draft, two standouts. So
well, that's where you look at where you talk about Mathurin for the Pacers.
Yeah,
Halliburton's your man.
He is.
I mean, he's your focus. He hurt us.
Yeah.
He came to when we played them recently. He hurt us. He had a great game. You're not planning for Benedict to start with.
You're not
these guys, but we can talk about these people because we do watch other teams. We do watch basketball. We're not just Magic Central. We will watch the highlights of other teams. We will watch other games. I sat down and watched that Clippers OKC game. I watched the Lakers Phoenix game. They're not. I don't just watch the Magic. I will watch other teams as well. And you have to say that these are the rookies. This class of probably, I think, last 2 or 3 seasons. The standard, the players that have come into the league, there's some absolute crackers, and the league's well set up because of the players that have come in. But as we said earlier, when you're talking about a particular award for consistency throughout the season, and as you said, being double team, triple team, being the primary focus, and the company that Paolo's record for this season is showing he's keeping, there can only be one choice. Can only be one choice.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll see what happens from now. I'll be interested to see how that goes. I'm really interested on where some of the media votes go. As we saw some stupid ones last year as well when it came to France. But anyway, we'll move into the mailbag. First question that came in was friend of the show, Dylan Holden. I don't know if you can see this, Dylan, but behind me there's a picture on my wall there, and it's actually you, me, Paul and Angus in Orlando at the Amway. So that's actually on my kitchen.
The Boston
wall.
Game.
Yeah, it's there. It's up
season
me.
Opener. Home season opener.
It is. So Dylan's asked if there's any updates on the Patreon. There's not much I dare say because Mikey might absolutely terminate my computer.
Yeah. We don't want drumming out of the Orlando Magic UK by Mikey because we're revealing too much.
All we'll say is maybe next season keep your eye on next season, and I think the summer next. Watch for the summer. Watch for the
off season.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting how we pitch our price plan. If you've got a love for Orlando Magic history, is that giving away too much, Paul, or is that?
No. I think there was some thought went into the tiers of how we would name of how the tiers have been named. I had nothing to do with that. But whoever was it, Mike, who came up with the idea?
It's
very good. It's very good.
It was the man of Ciderland himself who came up with it.
Cider man.
Yeah, Cider man. Friendly neighborhood Cider man. Does whatever a cider can. Right.
But yeah, Mikey's come up with the names for the tiers, and it's clever how he's done it. Yeah, we were impressed.
We are. He's not just a moderately pretty face, is he? I'm waiting for Mikey to start texting me when he listens to this back. Second question then comes from Matt the Game, and this was a hard question. It says, with Cole looking more and more efficient, especially from the mid-range, and improved on defence, what does a good contract look like to keep him, and is he willing to stay and be the sixth man? Right, this is an interesting one for me. If I was to make a comparison for Cole, and I might get flamed for this, and I might be really, really biased, but Cole right now, season averages, third year, 12.7 points per game.
Yep.
3.9 assists per game. He's playing 25.6 minutes per game, 4.6 rebounds. He's predominantly been the sixth man over the season. It's usually been from the bench. Field goal percentage, 44.5. 3-point percentage, 36. And it's been significantly improved since he's got healthy and the team's got healthy.
Yeah.
So I was looking around for a comparison, and a player who Cole's been likened to in the past is Jalen Brunson. And
interesting.
So I looked at year 3, Jalen Brunson, and 68 games for Dallas, 12 starts. Bear this in mind. 25 minutes per game. Cole 25.6. So it's his averages. Cole averaged 12.7 points per game. Jalen Brunson 12.6.
Really?
Yeah. He predominantly, this is a sixth man, similar minutes. Cole 3.9 assists per game. Jalen Brunson 3.5. And Jalen Brunson, 3.4 rebounds a game, Cole 4.6. Jalen Brunson's significant advantages were his field goal percentage was 52 compared to Cole's 44.5. And he's 41% from three compared to Cole's 36. So if you were playing agent, and this is, I think that's
a good comparison. I like that.
Jalen Brunson's come out of after year 4 with a 4-year contract around about $104 million. So he's making, 25 and a bit a season? Maybe more, 26 a season. 26 a season. So if we look at that, am I saying Cole should get that? Don't know, is my first answer. I think the Magic will try and get Cole to be on a contract, bearing in mind how the cap's going to work, an equivalent contract to Wendell. But I think if you're Cole's agent and you're starting those talks, you're maybe drawing the Jalen Brunson comparison that's coming in there. So where would Cole be at? 18, 20 million?
I think I'd be happy with that.
Will he ask?
I'm not gonna lie, I'd be happy with that. For me, I love Cole. I think you and I are both. We're the Cole fans on the group. I love the energy that Cole brings, which is where I think it makes him an ideal sixth man.
Yeah.
I don't feel that not being amongst the starters is a slight. I think that having such a key role that you are entrusted to come on when the starters are going off and keep that team moving. It's a huge. You can't have a team that's got 5 cracking players, 4 of them go off, and there's nothing else to come back on. There's nothing else to come on in their place. You have to have balance. The strength of a team is having people who buy into that and buy into the idea that by playing your role, you are valuable. And Cole gets that attention and respect because of the energy. His interviews help. Every single time he gets interviewed, it's a highlight.
Yeah.
But if by he's been willing this season to be that sixth man. I know that he's been quite open that he believes he's a starter in the league and wants to be a starter in the league. I've not heard him interviewed about that question for quite some time as to with what you're producing and how the team are doing with you as the team leader from the bench and the leader of the second unit, and also being out there at times as a finisher.
Mm-hmm.
Are you happy in that role? I've not seen him interviewed about that. I don't know if you have.
We don't know. I think it's because there's a lot of talk comes out where they're saying Cole's this and that, and it's been dispelled by Greg. We've seen Greg Anthony comment before about stuff. The honest answer is I don't know whether Cole wants to be the sixth man or not, because for me, he's a starting quality guard in the NBA.
Yep.
And it's ultimately where you see yourself. And, we might offer 18 to 20. He's within his rights to say, well, Jalen Brunson stats there. Maybe I deserve more. That could be, I don't know. I'm just playing like devil's advocate.
No, it's a conversation.
The conversation that's going to be had if you're Cole's agent. You could also throw out there that when Cole came in, he had no preseason because it was obviously COVID. We've seen injuries. We saw that 20 to 25 game stretch last season where Cole carried the team and he was putting up serious numbers and figures, and then injuries hit. He came back and he wasn't the same. We know injuries in my opinion.
I still don't think he was clear of that injury when he came back last season. I think was it the team wanting him back? Was it him wanting him back? Was it the case that we've got to have somebody out there?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and also when you look at Cole when he was at UNC, he played on a really bad UNC team. No offense to UNC fans, but he did, and he played injured. We know he's got that in his locker that he'll do that, and it damaged his draft stock. Cole Anthony was seen as a legit top 5 prospect in that draft.
Yeah.
And it damaged his stock. And I feel as though my worry is that Cole leaves, and I'm not saying he will, but my nightmare scenario is that he leaves and then he goes on to be a Jalen Brunson type.
Yeah.
Because Brunson has received a lot of plaudits this year. I'll be honest, I thought the Knicks had overpaid when they signed him.
Yeah.
But he's been the difference between where New York were and where New York are in terms of personnel, the numbers he's put up, etc. I don't know whether Cole sees himself as a sixth man or not. I'm not in his ear, but I do think he's a starting quality guard in the NBA who's been hit by injuries and misfortune and trades.
I'm just going to ask you a question on that. If you see yourself as a starter, but you are the sixth man, I'm actually, in my time of following the NBA, I'm struggling to think of the most effective sixth men who you could argue weren't starting quality. You have to have that. It just happens that your game is suited to coming off the bench. Mm-hmm. We saw it with T. Ross at times, didn't we? Mm-hmm. That as a starter, he didn't produce those figures. Mm-hmm. Coming from the bench, he was effective. He was more effective. But when you look at some of the players who have had Sixth Man of the Year awards, when you've seen them as a starter, they've not necessarily produced those same figures, even though you'd look and say they've got the quality.
Yep.
So, do you think that it is a case of the best six men have that quality to be able to play as starter?
I think as well, though, with Cole, we saw Cole play as a starter, and before the injuries hit, he put up the numbers then as well. I think what to bear in mind going forward is how healthy Markel is. We know the impact that Markel has on wins. And then it's a case of whose hands does the ball go into, because is it going to maximize Paolo to have more of the ball than Markel or not? I think there's a lot of questions around that. If I was putting it, I'm not an agent, obviously. I wish I was with some of the money they get. But if I was an agent, I would also turn around and say, well, it's great pitching at him being a sixth man, but how many sixth men get the big contracts?
Mm-hmm.
That would be my, like how many sixth men make it to an all-star? And think of that.
That's a fair point.
And if that's your ambition, which I think Cole's a very ambitious guy, and he's got that bravado about him, which we all love. That would be my 2 points.
I think that one of the strengths that he does have is his dad.
Yeah,
his dad talking in his ear, because they clearly do. When we had him on the pod, that was quite clear. There were a couple of stories that Mr. Anthony told us that we've never repeated because he asked us not to. That showed that they talk and that they talk through things within the team scenario about, and they talk through openly. As said, they've talked about his performance and what he can do differently and how he can address it. So I do think that that's one of the strengths. It'll be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to know what Greg Anthony thinks as to, is Cole better as a starter or better as a sixth man? It'd be an interesting question to ask him. And potentially at that point, you'd have an idea as to where Cole actually feels. But I do agree with you. Being such a Cole fan, I think he is a starting quality.
Yeah. And
it's hard to argue why he doesn't get starting minutes.
Mm-hmm. I would say, just to draw a positive line under it, do remember Cole's reaction when we were the team who drafted him on draft night.
Yeah,
when he slipped to 15.
Absolutely. Right. I even though on what I've just said, I hope that we continue to see Cole as the sixth man because of the impact that he is having for the team. Mm-hmm. Markel's return to the starting unit has had a massive impact. One of the things that we have seen this season, and this is down to Cole, is that the bench has had an impact. Not every game. Mm-hmm. Cole's had an impact on a lot of games, and particularly over the last few weeks, his impact has been incredible in these last few weeks. So personally, I hope that even though, as I say, Cole, I believe, is starting quality, and it's hard to argue, as I said, him not getting starting minutes with the Magic. I hope that he continues to embrace that role because what he's doing for the team is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll see, because I think it'll be continued in the summer, Paul. But
oh yes, I don't think it's the last time we're being asked that question.
No, it's a great question, and it's one that really made us think. So those two great questions. Yeah. Thanks to Dylan and Matt for sending them in. So it brings us to predictions. So before we record next, the Magic are hosting the Nets on Sunday, 11 p.m. tip-off in the UK before travelling to Memphis at 1 a.m. of Wednesday. I never got a chance to ask Mikey, but G predicted 2-0 last night. So Paul, where are you going with this?
G's saying we're beating Memphis. In Memphis, is he? Yeah. 1-1 for me. I do think we've got a chance of beating the Nets. I do think we've got a chance of that one. Home court playing quite nicely on it. Yeah, I think we're 1-1, mate.
Yeah, I've got 1-1 as well. In the same.
I just think that at this moment, I think we will go into Memphis and we will compete. They won't. They're not a team that rolls over. I think they'll make Memphis work for anything that they get. But I think ultimately, as Memphis are fighting for as high a seeding as they can get, they will possibly have too much for us on the night. Yeah. And of course, as we had that discussion last week, they've got a certain player who should be suspended available.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Ratings and everything like that, you know.
Gary, you're so cynical.
Yeah, my tinfoil hat is back out, you know. So, as always, thank you for listening and watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us your comments. We'll try and get back to you. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Orlando Magic UK. And from me, and especially from the grandfather.
Yes, the elder statesman of the Orlando Magic UK, Grandad. Grandad Raoul.
Well, congrats again, Paul. It's beautiful.
Thank you, man.
But
Thank you.
We're really pleased, but also one more member of the Magic fan base to say go Magic.
Yeah, I also want to say, before we just go, Gary, I do want to say to every member of Orlando Magic UK and those that follow us and the like, who have said on Twitter and Instagram and this and the other, thank you for your good wishes and thanking us. It is genuinely appreciated.
Thanks for watching and congrats again, Paul.
Thanks, mate.
Right. See you next week.